roles. They don't want to lose you, and you don't want to go out and try to find a new job. So using all of these skills, all of these tips that we have shared during this presentation, take that to your current employer and say, I want to build a career strategy within this company, and these are the things that I have been doing in the community that can help this company. So some of my final thoughts in community volunteering is a really great way to stretch your mind. And I always look at community volunteering as a way to work on some development challenges or professional development challenges that I don't have any other opportunity to work on. My best example, and there's only one person in the room who will understand this example, is I had someone on one of my groups that I was always butting heads with. And no matter what phone conversation we were in or face-to-face conversation, and we butt heads like there was nobody's business, and we would always walk out of the room really mad. And I realized, well, I couldn't try that sort of work situation in my personal life with my husband, or I would have had a divorce. I couldn't really work on that situation in my professional development or in my profession because my staff would leave me. So I used this community volunteering board opportunity to sort of examine, okay, this is a challenge that I have in my life. I butt heads with people. And I realized time and time again, the reason why they were butting heads with me is because I wasn't listening. I wasn't giving them the opportunity to say their piece. And I needed to just shut up. And once I stopped trying to talk all the time and listen to the people who were on my board, I actually was able to lower the stress and tension level within that organization. And I always look at community volunteering as personal development in addition to professional development. It's a lot cheaper than paying for a lot of therapy. So Doug, Cindy, some final thoughts on community volunteering? Cindy, you can go first and then Doug.
So one of the things I found when I was working for the DoD, and I mean I was able to present to the Chief of Staff for the Air Force, for Air Force personnel. That was kind of exciting, but I had the ability to present to them based upon a very clear set of rules, which at the time was, I think it was still, it was DICAP at the time. So I was able to say, this is what is happening and this is how it's going. And I could point directly back to a very clear set of rules that they were required to follow. Volunteering and being able to express myself in different formats has given me the ability to now become a little more articulate when it comes to less, I guess, prescriptive levels of security. Now I'm presenting to boards of directors saying this is what you need to do, and it's a bit more ambiguous as far as why you need to do it, and have that ability to be able to express those thoughts and everything in a clearer format, because I'm having to, on CFP, when I'm doing CFPs, be able to articulate to different types of groups of people, volunteer organization, when I'm going in and I'm talking to the caterers who have no clue what we're doing, to the lighting guys who kind of have an idea of what they're doing, but they don't know what we're trying to get across, and being able to spread this communication ability across all these different areas, that's helped me out tremendously. Another real quick story, when Kathleen and I were preparing to do the first iteration of this panel, I went to my leadership, and because Rapid 7 is very involved with the community, and I said, so, you know, I'm doing this on community involvement, and, you know, what do you, you know, what got Rapid 7 involved? They probably the story about, you know, Metasploit coming into the community, being community involved because of Metasploit, and it just evolved from there. And I said, well, you guys know I'm really involved with lots of aspects of the community. I said, what do you guys have? Do we have any resources in place that would help if I find myself like overcommitting? And this is the VP of HR says, you don't. You don't. It's a great idea. Would you like to help lead that? Guess what? So, yeah. So once again, overcommitting to yourself, overcommitting your time, volunteering for things you never knew you were going to be a part of. That's something to be aware of and to try to manage to the best of your ability and be a little bit particular on what you're going to go ahead and select your efforts, your energy could be put into.
Doug?
Not my strong suit, but I'll try to be concise. Two things that I wanted to say. One, if you are an employer or if you are in the process of trying to sell the idea of volunteerism to your employer, using a specific example of Veris Group, we had hard data. People in the company who were active in their professional communities had higher personnel evaluations. And this was consistent and by a significant enough margin that it was a noteworthy figure. We had an elite pen testing team at Veris Group, rose to about almost 30 people. We, during one calendar year, had 0 attrition. Ask any recruiter, ask any HR person, that will never happen on a team of 30. They were so active in the community, so networked with people outside of the company, it was clear that there was a connection. So if you're trying to sell it as an employer or to an employer, it's hard data. And then about networking, we talk about it a lot. I don't know if we really delve into it as deeply as we should. It's not just showing up, meeting some people, talking about things. That's awesome. Get their names, get their contact information, follow up. See if there's anything out there that you can participate in through those new connections and maintain them. Seems like a daunting task, a bunch of people, it takes a lot of time, but it doesn't necessarily take as much as you might think. But if you just meet them at an event and then walk away, it's not going to do you nearly the good that ongoing contact. And to give a personal example that is outside of cyber, but I'm fortunate to have done some things with a local recruiting group. First panel I ever did, shout out Matt Durham at Tenable. It's a recruiting organization, and the last 2 jobs that I've taken, both coming in situations where I was in an employment situation that I knew I needed to get out of, reached out to people that I had met through recruiting organizations, and the jobs came to me. And it's a small thing, but it's huge. The last 2 jobs I've gotten, I've loved. And the reason for it is because I didn't have to go out and just throw my resume at everything under the sun. I had people out there who knew of opportunities. They knew me well enough to know what might be a good opportunity for me, and they helped get me into the right place. So I cannot emphasize enough. Networking is an active commitment, but it pays off. The dividends are immeasurable.
So we're out of time. We actually ran over. Does anyone have any questions? Or if you don't have any questions, we'll be around. We have another panel. So was this an okay presentation? School is in session. No, good morning. They asked us to do that so that all of the syncing can go on with the video and the audio. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for those of you. There's about 5 of you who decided to stay in the room from our earlier presentation. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Kathleen Smith, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for a company called cybersecjobs.com and clearjobs.net. We've been involved with BSidesDC for the last 3 years. Please come back to this room at 3 o'clock where we will be doing the hiring happy hour. Not only will we have employers who are looking to talk to you about future jobs, but we will also have 6 absolutely fabulous recruiters who will give you advice on your resumes and any other career search questions you have. So I've been fortunate to have recruiter panels or moderate recruiter panels for the last 4 years. There was a conference that Doug and I we were at in September, and the theme was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So you will see a lot of references in this presentation because I just thought it was a lot of fun. So we're going to introduce our presenters. First is Kevin, and then we're going to do Doug, and then we're going to do Susie, and then Matt. So Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin Worldmay. I run the technical recruiting team over at FireEye. For us, most of that hiring is around incident responders, red teamers, security analysts, all the really fun stuff that happens when a breach occurs.
And Doug?
I am the Director of Talent Acquisition for MAG Aerospace, formerly same role with Coalfire and Veris Group. It really shocks me I never tried to recruit Kevin because we need some recruiters there. But
I think I'm stealing people.
well, we've got a few back. And to Kathleen's point, I haven't had the opportunity to do some of these panels before, and it is a wonderful opportunity because there is a real lack of conversation between recruiters and candidates as to what the process looks like from our perspective, what's going on behind the scenes, and for that matter, we very often don't have a real sense of what the candidate pool is up against and experiencing. So welcome every opportunity to come to one of these events.
Susie?
Hi, my name is Susie Rico. I'm president of SG2 Recruiting. We are a firm that supports both small and national organizations in their hiring. My background is a little bit of agency recruiting and corporate recruiting, so I hope to be able to bring some of those two pieces to the discussion today.
And Matt?
Hi everyone, Matt Duran. I manage technical recruiting efforts at Tenable. Let's see a couple people I've worked with in the past in the audience. Please no heckling, especially in the front here. I've done a lot of things within the recruiting community. I work with Kathleen on another board, and Susie actually, for a recruiting community here in DC, but I've also helped out with BSides Las Vegas. I've given a couple talks locally on unallocated as well with these guys in front. Just on some of this topic, right? Just understanding what you can do to engage with us, what we can do to engage with you, what things we screw up, what things you screw up. So we'll talk about all that stuff. I like kind of pulling back the curtain and talking with everybody about ways to improve the communication between our groups.
And so that's been sort of my role as the Chief Marketing Officer for cybersecjobs.com, is to get the conversation going, because I would always hear about people being upset with recruiters and posting them on the Twitter handle, you know, shit recruiters say, or making jokes about them about all the awful LinkedIn posts. And unfortunately, everyone then thinks that all recruiters are like that. And I have the opportunity and privilege to work with so many great recruiters that I go to every single conference and submit a proposal and say, let me bring a panel of recruiters up so that we can talk about that there are really great people who like making a difference in people's lives by helping them get a job. So looking on Google, you will find that this is what people think recruiters are. A lot of people think it's happy-go-lucky. A lot of people are not really quite sure what they do. A lot of people think recruiters are lazy, and a lot of people think that, you know, this is an easy job. Well, I want each one of our panelists, and we'll start with Kevin and go all the way down to Doug, sort of talk about what is your typical day like? Who do you interact with, and what is the thing that sucks up most of your time?
So first off, there is no typical day. Every day is crazy insane for recruiters, and quite honestly, we're always plugged in. I mean, any recruiter who's working, you wish you weren't 24/7, but you are 24/7. And that includes a lot of different things. And we talk to a lot of candidates, and truthfully, we talk to a lot of candidates that never make it any further in the process. I think for me, probably the greatest time suck is the fact that, you know, when folks apply to everything. I love that people apply to jobs, but, you know, apply to the right roles, and you're going to get a better response from us instead of 50 roles, I think.
Matt, your typical day? It's playing with your daughters all the time, right?
It is, yeah. There was a comment about things people wouldn't know about us. I'll just share it right now. I wouldn't expect you to know about us. I know every word to the Frozen soundtrack. It's great. You want me to belt it out, I can.
I think we should close with that.
I tried that once and I got shut down. You know, my day, I manage a team now. You know, so I'll speak to that a little bit. And I actually, up until recently, had 2 people in Dublin. So my day started at Dublin, Ireland, Ohio. My day usually started at 6 a.m. with their responses, right? They've been at work for a couple hours at that point. They have things they need to do, so I'm watching ESPN or something like that, and eating my oatmeal, drinking my coffee, but I'm still, you know, engaging with them on a regular day. I do get in the office a little later on. I do make a nice list of things I need to accomplish through the day, and as soon as I finish that list, something else pops up that wasn't on that list, and so yes, I finished the list. So I try to plan out my day. I just know things I have to get done, and then stuff hits the fan and things people come with me. But I think what's what sucks up a lot of my time. This is going to be the dumbest thing in the world, so administrative, but it's scheduling things. Oh, it's terrible. You got candidates who you want to bring them in, you want to get them fast in the process, and you know, the managers, the hiring managers, the executives are talking to you about, hey, when's this person coming in? It's like, I got to juggle 6 people's calendars plus the availability of the candidates, and I have to do that 2-3 times for one job during a day. It sounds really boring, I know, I'm sorry, but it really is. I think you guys any recruiter out there, it's getting those scheduling pieces together.
Susie, your typical day, I know you're, you know, I get emails from you at midnight, so I know you're
I was
always...
going to say, it's a long day. I don't think it's a day. Like you said, we're on 24/7. Because I'm not a corporate recruiter per se, I'm actually spending half of my time talking to my hiring managers for different companies. So they reviewed a resume, they like it or they don't like it, and they're telling me to shift my focus because they already hired the person that they asked me to search for them. So it's getting information from my hiring managers, finishing my client calls, my candidate calls that I already scheduled, thinking I knew what I was looking for because the hiring manager said this is what I was looking for, and then perhaps, you know, finishing those calls and then starting to source for the new requirements that the hiring manager had shifted to, and then the administrative tasks. There's a lot of scheduling, there's a lot of sourcing, figuring out which way I'm going to find the candidates, how I'm going to find you. Are you going to be someone who's hiding in social media? Are you going to be hiding in plain sight on LinkedIn? So it's big. Sourcing is a big, I would say, a big portion of my day. I wouldn't say it's the hardest part of my day, but it takes the largest portion of my day.
Can I define one?
Sourcing means cyber stalking, you guys.
Absolutely correct.
Stalkers.
Absolutely correct. That is how I spend most of my day.
So in the time that I've known Doug, he's been at 3 different companies. And at one time you were the sole recruiter with part-time with Krissa, I believe. And then you moved on to another company and managed people. And now you manage people and do a variety of other things as the recruiter. So your typical day.
I do. I lead a team of 9 people, geographically dispersed, and some of the programs that we support. In fact, we have more people in our company working downrange in Afghanistan than in the United States. So for me, it's time zone management, but it's also managing up and managing sideways. I like to say it's managing my team, making sure everyone knows what they need to do, knows what their goals are for a given day, but it's also, and this is the hardest part, managing up. Every single hiring manager thinks that you should be working solely on their requirements. And no matter what those requirements are, how bizarre, how incomprehensible, they expect it to have happened yesterday. So it's managing their expectations, managing their role in the process to get things done, and then it's managing candidate expectations. It's managing the process to be sure that everyone is getting what they need out of it, and then it's managing to the C-suite. Because at any given time, and it just happened to be this in the last couple of days, brand new program, board of directors is looking, got to get this done. Oh, well, we should have had it done 2 weeks ago, but that wasn't communicated to us. So it's managing all those expectations, and that biggest time suck goes into the level of communication that's going top, down, sideways. Invariably, things get lost, and trying to make sure the least amount gets lost, and when it does, that we're able to pick it up, put it in the right place, and run with it quickly. And that sucks up a huge portion of the day.
And then when we're done with all of that, we go to meetups at night so we can eat pizza and beer with you.
So, Susie, since you chimed in, I'm going to ask you to start the next question. What part of the job process, inquiry, tech interview, face-to-face interview, job offer, negotiations, what part of the process does the job seekers you work with, what do they mess up the most? What is the one mistake that they made? And is there been any time when a job seeker has just totally impressed the socks off of you?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the first one. I hate it when they are not honest about where they are in the job search with other people. So if I'm talking to them and I'm talking to them about what the process is for me and my client, about the technical interview, then the technical screen, and then the panel interview. I'm going through that entire process and saying this is going to take maybe a week and a half. And then I ask them, okay, where are you in your job search? Like, I'm sure I'm not the only recruiter who found you. Where are you? Oh, I'm not looking. You're the only one I'm talking to. And only to find out when going through the process, I can't make it, I accepted another offer. So that probably is the one thing that really upsets me the most, because I'm candid with my expectations of them, and I'm hoping that they would be candid with me.
Has anyone impressed you?
Yes.
Okay.
When I'm talking to them about a particular client, and that client has a GitHub account, and they are telling me that they, for the interview with me, even me, the recruiter, I checked out the GitHub account, I know what they're doing, I'm pretty impressed, I'd like you to tell me what they're doing more on the microservices piece or the languages they're using. Even though I can't answer that question, it just demonstrates they did their homework, especially for a technical company, that the GitHub account is available, and they did it before they talked to me. 2 people. And I've been doing this for 5.5 years. 2 people have done that.
Matt, what do people mess up, and what do people impress you with?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger things, and this is something for everybody to understand, I think when candidates don't know their value, we're talking salary here, so it's a little bit on the negotiation piece or the salary conversation. So the pain point for me is when we've talked about a number, you know, this numbers was good last week when we talked, it was good the day before the final interview, only to get that piece of paper and say, these are the words that I hear all the time. I did a little more research, and that number's 10K, 20K, whatever it is. You know, it's more than what I was able to go back and get for that person. So that, I mean, people have different opinions on this. That's why I like the salary discussion early on. You have things documented, people understand, and it may incite you to go do that research before we get to that last interview. So that to me is kind of the big mistake. But flip side, so I do some fun stuff with my LinkedIn profile, because LinkedIn is really boring. It sucks a lot. But I have hex code in it. I have some Easter eggs in it, and it's got Simpsons references and things like that. So somebody actually, a job seeker, a young kid, just graduated college, found all those things that I put in my profile and framed the entire email to me from the subject line, and he found my personal email address, which is not that hard, but still interesting. Found all that, referenced the stuff in the subject, wrote a whole paragraph about it, and then referenced something about beer afterwards, which was really good. I would have gone for beer just for the email. He applied. I looked at the resume earlier and I didn't think it was great, but I'm like, they did that much to get my attention. I'm gonna call him. Okay, I interviewed him, passed him on, and that person a couple weeks later started with us. So there are things out there that you can find to connect with the people in the organization. Find those things if that's what you want to do. You really want to go there. Find those things and use those to engage with the people that you're going to talk to.
Kevin?
I say, adding on what Matt said, I think preparation ends up being where a lot of people mess up. You know, don't necessarily just apply to a job with the exact same resume that every single job you apply for. You know, go in there, actually tailor what you're applying for. Go in, understand what you're actually talking to the recruiter about the role. You know, unfortunately, a lot of recruiters, if you don't impress us, you're not getting further in the process. You know, you have to understand that we are still evaluating. A lot of us actually have a pretty good idea of what we're talking about from a technical perspective. So I think that lack of preparation tends to hurt a lot of people that are out there. I think the ones that have impressed me are the ones that kind of go above and beyond from a preparation standpoint. So I typically like to ask questions of candidates, even the technical ones, that are more scenario-based, and have them walk me through how they would tackle certain things, in particular, how they would go about doing a red team assessment. And the guys that come up and have all these crazy off-the-wall ideas that does something different than everybody else is more impressive than the guy that tells me, well, I wrote, use this tool, this tool, this tool, this tool. Like, show me something that no one else is doing, and that's going to get my attention really fast.
So Doug, how about, you know, what do people mess up the most, and what has someone done to impress you in the process?
It's going to be a little redundant here. To Matt's point, that is the biggest pain in the neck that I run into. Do your best to know your value before you ever get to an interview process. If you're dealing with a recruiter who won't give you a sense of what the job does pay, then you're not dealing with a very good recruiter. It is incumbent on us to be transparent and early in the process, as Matt alluded to. But if we get down to the wire and you're the person, and all of a sudden that number changes significantly, it doesn't look good. And we may still be able to get you in the door, but you've already set a negative tone. So get that out of the way right off the bat and be consistent. If it's a job that you want and you get it, there's going to be plenty of opportunity to increase your earnings and move forward. On the positive side, again, it is that preparation. Nothing impresses more than somebody who, from an initial screening, has genuine, well-thought, well-researched questions about the company. While I read that you did this assessment for this company, that's really cool. They're huge. You know, what was that like? Anything, just the recognition that they have done at least a cursory website search and seen what we do. And if you want to go to the next level, along the lines of what Matt described, I've had people ask me about blogs I wrote. Now, yeah, it's kind of sucking up, but to Kevin's point, we are gatekeepers. And if you can suck up to us, you're going to have a much better chance of getting the rest of your story told. And who knows, you might find that we do have something interesting about us that you might want to ask about. So absolutely, the preparation, the research, and the consistency and transparency in terms of what you want.
So, yes, Susie's done blogs, Matt's done blogs. I think Doug, you've actually, there's like 8 or 9 blog articles that Doug has out there. So, you know, one of the ways to learn more about recruiters is actually see if they've written a blog. A lot of them have either written a blog for their company or they've written it for someone, you know, else in the community. But, you know, they're not just people who sit behind desks. So what's interesting is when people get angry at recruiters, they'll say, well, the recruiter didn't get me the job. The recruiter did not hire me. And I think this is interesting that a lot of people think that the decision maker is the recruiter. They may be an influencer, but they may not necessarily be the decision maker. So Matt and the rest of the panel, please describe what is the decision-making process in your company, because each one of you has a different process. And what a lot of people think about or don't think about is how long it's going to take them to find that next job. You may do a rage quit at 3:50 on Friday afternoon and expect to have a job that following Monday. Then you are pretty ignorant about what the current job search process is all about and how long it's going to take you to find that next job, because a lot of people don't realize you have, you know, a mortgage to pay and bills to pay. If you're really frustrated, do a rage quit, and then it takes you 6 months to find a job, that's no one else's fault but your own. So Matt, you want to talk about the decision-making process and the interview process for your company?
Sure, and to something that you said a second ago is the recruiter didn't get me the job. I like to think about when you were in school and I got an A, but the teacher gave me an F, right? Just think about it in that context. Like, it's the same thing. You got a grade. Did you earn the grade or not? So that's to cover that point. But as far as process, it's going to vary by job. So I'll give you at least one that we have. This is kind of our technical support team, which is very relevant to the group here. But we have a core set of questions. We'll ask about 10 technical questions. We have the answer. There's a yes or no. There's a black or white. There's an A, B, or C, right? So we know that, and we're scoring against that. We have to have somebody get at least 3 out of 5 on the first half, 3 out of 5 on the second half to be minimally qualified. Right? So those are going to be technical questions. You get past that, there's a technical screen with one of our team leads on the team. Again, it's not as black or white with that. It's not like we're scoring a sense, but we're testing Linux knowledge, we're testing scanning knowledge, things like that. And then there's an on-site as well with another about 3 or 4 hiring managers that come in. We have different shifts, so it may depend on what shift we're talking about. And then it's a very technical interview there too. You can be grilled on networking, you can be grilled on security. There's a lot of things that you're going to have to know. So there are a lot of people in that process. There's the recruiter, there's the tech lead, and there's at least 2 managers, maybe sometimes more than that. They're evaluating you at that stage. Obviously, if you got to that last stage, you've done well enough. But just know that those are a lot of things that you'll need to prepare for. The questions that you get ahead of time, you're going to want to know your stuff as you walk into the recruiter. That's a phone call. If you're talking about something more software-oriented or research-oriented, we have challenges. We use HackerRank for testing, for code testing. We have certain research-based things for if you're going for security research to understand plugins. Those are things you have to take back and do. It may take you an hour, it may may take you 3 hours. Understand that those are, and you may have to do that over a couple of days too. So understanding the process of the interview that you're going for, you're going to want to know that. That'll give you a better idea of how long this is probably going to take.
Susie? Because Susie, you represent clients.
Right.
So you have an entirely different process.
With every company, it's different. So I'm going to go with Red Hat since it's a big company that you probably have heard of. Their initial process is to do a preliminary tech screen, half hour, and then if you make it past that cut, you get green-lighted to get permission to take a HackerRank assessment that's designed for either platform or for middleware. And then if you pass or get a decent number there, then you're invited to do a panel interview where you are doing a presentation. You are delivering a presentation in any format you want to a panel of technical and non-technical individuals so they can assess your communication skill sets. All that entire process may take anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks. And so that is the process, but ultimately someone on the client team is making a decision at every stage whether or not you move forward. So if you're moving forward, you're getting the green light from me, I'm like, hey, great, you're going forward next. If you're getting you're not moving forward, it's because someone on the team had said, the technical skill sets or the communication skill sets were not there.
So Doug, you represent, you have your clients, but then you also have customers, right?
Well, my clients and customers are the same. They are the folks that work for MAG Aerospace and other companies I worked for before, so my client base is internal. In terms of process, it's fairly consistent with what you've heard. There'll be a recruiter screen, there'll be a technical screen, there'll be an in-person interview. Depending on the role, there may be either assessments or presentations, and that all varies according to what the role might be. But to the decision-making process, ultimately, I don't know of very many companies that the recruiter plays a huge role in the final decision. We can be influencers, we are information peddlers, we may be asked as far as just soft skills, how do we find this person? But ultimately the hiring manager is going to be that authority. But in the difference between corporate recruiting that I do and the work that Susie, for example, does, if you're working with an agency, a firm that's representing a client, that recruiter is truly an advocate for you. It's a little dicier on the corporate level because we want to make sure that while we are advocating for what you bring positive to the role, we're also letting you present yourself as you are. We're not going to try and sell you to a hiring manager necessarily. But the advocate on an agency side, they want you to get the job. They want you to be the right person for the job, and they can coach you in a wonderful way to be better prepared to get it. And that goes both agency and corporate, and I think it's been alluded to here. But as soon as you talk to the recruiter, ask about the process. What is it? Are there challenges? Are there assessments? How long is it going to take? They'll tell you. So get a real picture going in so that you can be better prepared. Any one of us wants you to put your best foot forward. So we'll give you, we may not give you the answers to the test, but we'll tell you what the test looks like so that you're prepared and you can put your best self into it. So ask the questions up front. How long is it going to take? Who am I going to talk to? Then look them up. If you can get a name of the hiring manager you're going to interview with, check them out, see what their background is. Who knows, you might have a connection to this person you don't even realize worked at the same company 4 years ago. All of those things are very valuable to you.
Yeah, and keep in mind the process is not just contingent on us either. It's contingent on you in a lot of cases. When we're talking technical assessments, if we send you a technical assessment and you wait 2 weeks to complete it, already we're worried about, are you actually interested in the role? Are you actually motivated for this type of position? There is that back and forth there. We have to understand that, hey, you have an interest in the role as well as from our side. I would say for us with decision making, I think we actually differ a little bit in the fact that I've actually rejected candidates who've gotten to on-site. That I've been the decision maker to make that decision because of something they did in that on-site interview. In particular, I had 1 or 2 candidates who, quite honestly, their attitude was one that was not going to fit with the organization, and we had to make the call. Hiring team loved the guy, loved the background, knew for a fact that they came in the door, half the team would leave. And I think sometimes that's a perspective recruiter can give is that we have a much better attitude or much better understanding the attitudes and cultural aspects across the organization to understand who and what's going to fit across the company as well.
So do you want?
One thing?
Yeah.
So by saying that, you made me think of something that I never really thought of before. A question to ask the recruiters: what is your decision-making role? I mean, just ask them straight up. Like, do you play a part in this process? And normally, sometimes they don't. They are just pushing people around, but sometimes they do. I've had at the executive level, I have a last call with the VP or the C-suite to say, what did you think? Are we making the right decision here? Is this something that we should be doing? Is there anything that you saw in this process that we should be aware of? So I would ask the question about, recruiter, what is your role in the evaluation process?
And what's interesting is that a lot of people do not take advantage of the recruiter's expertise. As Kevin said, they're going to be able to answer a lot of the questions that you might have, even though you're going to ask those questions further on in the process. What is the culture fit? What is the sort of decision-making process within the organization? Is it very bureaucratic? Are you very driven by the customers you represent? I mean, a lot of us in this space are working for government contractors who then, serve the Veterans Administration or DHS, and understanding what that culture is about. Because yes, you may have the technical skills, but if you don't have the culture fit with the company, and then if they support another customer, you're definitely going the wrong way because you're not understanding that process. The other thing that a lot of job seekers don't do, and I am really, really surprised about this, is they don't have a network of recruiters. So if you are going to find a vacation spot, or go to a movie, or go to a restaurant, you have a network of people that you value their opinion. You value where they, what movies they see and what food they like to eat. And they are your go-to people for those important things. Your job is very important. Why would you not have a network of recruiters who would be your go-to people to say, hey, I'm looking for a job? Now, a lot of people wait until they're looking for a job to actually start networking with a recruiter. I would say it's the reverse. You should find 8 to 10 recruiters that you really get along with, that you have, some kind of connection with. They may be at a company, like Doug was at Veris, and he then moved on to another company. He's going to remember you because you had a connection, you had a relationship. Matt at one time was working with Geico, and you may have been interviewed by him for Geico, and then all of a sudden he went to go work with Tenable. He may not have been able to hire you at Geico, but he definitely will remember you if you've kept in touch and networked with him, and then be able to find a job at Tenable. And all of the recruiters, they want to make a difference in your life by helping you find a job. So even if they don't have a job for you, if you want to give them a call, any one of these people, if you give them a call and say, I'm feeling uncomfortable in this hiring process, or I have a question about this kind of company and what they're going to do, they're going to answer that question for you. They're going to help you, because that's what they're all about. And this is the one thing that really frustrates me, is that people don't find recruiters to work with them and touch base with them every 6 months. You should have 8 to 10 recruiters that you really like working with, and you just have a calendar notice that says every 6 months you just sort of do a hey, how's it going? I just finished my CISSP, or I just moved to another company, or I just took on this new challenge. What's going on in your life? It's a short email, but it's something that the recruiter is going to remember, and if they remember the things that you're great at and what you're looking for, and if that opportunity comes available within their company, you are going to be on their I need to call this person list. Does anyone have any comments on that, or do I get an amen?
I think you get an amen, but the one comment I'll make is there's no time too early to start that either. There's way too many students right now to wait till they're junior, senior, start thinking about what is my job, who do I need to reach out to, where do I need to go. You should start thinking about that back in high school, maybe middle school.
Kindergarten.
Like with the kids out back.
It's the crypto kids, right? One thing I will clarify, I feel needs to be clarified. My day job is to hire the right people and build teams at Tenable, right? That's what I get paid for. That's what I do. What I think, Kathleen, and correct me if I'm wrong, but finding the person, the recruiter that actually can help you, even though you may not get the job at that company, I think is key here. It's almost an advisor. Now, if you've come to me and we've tried and it couldn't happen. If you think I could be helpful to you somewhere else, I will be. You're not going to find a lot of recruiters that actually do that. There are a lot of them out there. You can find some. But knowing that they might actually have your interest at heart, I may not be able to hire you in my company, but I can try to get you somewhere else. Because I'm here on a Saturday at a security conference, and there aren't very many other recruiters that are here doing this kind of stuff. So find folks like all of us up here that actually care about the community first sometimes. I'm sorry, not first. Sorry, community has to come second sometimes because my paycheck is first. The bank is first. The mortgage is first. But for those that actually give up some of their time to go out and do stuff like this.
So we're going to touch on resumes. And I'm going to do Susie and then Doug. I'm actually going to give you a break because the next question, it's all you. So you can, lots of questions. Go to get some coffee.
Should I take a nap? Do some
You can take a
stretching?
nap. Okay, so let's talk about resumes. There's surveys out there that say that a recruiter only looks at a resume for 7 seconds. There are things that people bury on their resume. There are things that you find on a resume that drive you nuts. You have, as you said earlier, people who submit the same resume 50 different times. We have students in the audience. We have transitioning military. Should we bring our resume to the interview? Pick any of those questions you want to answer. Go, Susie.
If there's one thing that I would recommend to include in your resume are your own personal achievements, because I am looking at a resume in volume because of the nature of the work that I do. I am probably spending no more than 6 seconds on every resume in my initial review. So if there are achievements highlighted somewhere, I know that's what I'm going to, because anything that you've spent time or thought into highlighting on your resume, that's what I'm going to use probably to talk to my hiring manager to say, I'm not going to say 20 years of experience at doing ABC technology. So I'm going to say this guy accomplished ABCD in such a period of time under budget. That's what I'm going to highlight. So if you take the time to include 2 or 3 bullet points that I as a recruiter can share with my hiring manager, that is to your advantage. So that is the one thing that I rarely see on resumes, which is surprising because it's what will differentiate you from the 100 people I had to look through to find the right fit.
I would say on the 7 seconds continuation, it absolutely unfortunately does happen. We have so much volume. So when you think about a resume, for me, put what's most important at the front of your resume, whether that's your degree, your certification, your actual experience. Don't bury something significant at the very bottom of your resume. Put it up at the top. There's no set order for a resume in this day and age. And please, for the love of God, don't feel limited to 1 page. Whoever's been telling students that needs to stop, because if you have enough information for 2 pages or more, make it more, because there's enough information that we want to know about.
So I'm going to ask you about that a little bit. We had a presentation we had earlier about community involvement. Where do you want to see community involvement, and what do you want? That I folded t-shirts, or do you want that I presented at a conference, I competed in a competition? What about community involvement?
So I think any of those are great. The more stuff you can do that's hands-on is great, is even better. Folks that are involved in CCDC in college or CTFs, or they're developing their own tool on the side. I mean, it's whatever you're doing that's beyond your job or your education is significant. You need to highlight that, and that's honestly how you make the next step in the job, is doing more than just going to work and clocking in and out.
Yeah, a couple things, again, on the timing perspective, just to give you some context around maybe some of the jobs you have to work on. I had one recently where I had 852 applications. Do the math. I spent more than just a little bit of time on that. I lived my entire week just looking at reading every single word in those. So yeah, there is a scan, right? And then you kind of filter and do that. So there are a lot of people that come in for very particular jobs. So just understand that side of it. So making yourself stand out is good, and that's how you do that. A couple of things about how you can frame it. And this, if you come out later tonight to the happy hour thing, we'll talk more about this, I'm sure. But the resume, think of it, it's a digital document now, right? Unless you're going to a career fair where you have to have a physical copy of your resume, think of it in context of it's going to be on somebody's computer screen. you can add links to it. It doesn't have to tell the whole story. Okay, you can say in your top, here's some things. But if you want more, go to my LinkedIn. You can list everything on your LinkedIn. And I suggest people do that. Put it all out there if you have. Some people don't want it, but put as much as you want to there, and that way you can kind of pick and pull from parts of that to build a resume more suited to that job that you're looking at. But I would use that resume, especially in a digital format, to say, here are other places you can find me if you want more on this. Because if you have a lot of background and you think your resume is getting too long and you're pushing it at 3 and 4 pages, that's where you can start kind of trunking some of that stuff and say, find more here, find more there. One piece of advice I'll give, and I tell this every time I do a resume review, the objective section of your resume is antiquated, all right? Objective statements mean, here's what I want from you, company. Summary is, here's me, here's what I do, and here's what I want to do. So, and you can change that and make it something related to the job a little bit every time that you do that. So give your professional summary at the top of your resume, maybe 2 sentences, 3 sentences, if you don't want to get too verbose with it, but add that to the top. Replace your objective statement with that.
I hope. Oh, can I just add one? Sorry.
Go ahead now, Joe.
Okay. I do like objective statements, but only when you're transitioning. So if you are transitioning as a student and you're educated in one area but looking for another job in a different area, you need to explain to me as a recruiter why I'm reading everything I'm reading, and your objective statement is going to help me understand why you're looking for another job in a different industry or a different profession or a different career path. I need that. But if you just give me the traditional resume that just has everything that you've done and you've applied to my my systems engineering job and you've been a project manager all your life, I'm going to say no. I'm not even going to ask why. I'm not going to call you and say, why did you say no? I'm just going to move on to the next resume. So the objective statement helps me follow or understand why you're applying to the job that is non-traditional to your resume.
Yeah, and I think going back to the summary, less is more sometimes. Those of you that make half your resume, every single skill set under the sun that you talk to, we're not looking at the skill sets. You tell us what you did, not the single technologies you know in there. If you want skills on to have it captured in the resume searches, put it at the bottom of the resume, have it in there captured. You put it at the top, we've already skimmed through, and we've probably skipped your resume at that point.
So one of the things that pops up a lot in this industry is I have great skills, but I'm unhireable. I'm socially awkward. I have anxiety. I can't get out and meet people. So we actually had this conversation earlier in September, and Doug and I talked a little bit more about it. And people are saying, well, if I consider myself unhireable, and what we mean by that is a definition that was given to us by a conference organizer who actually had an autistic child who he was trying to find the way to put them through the job search process. So, socially awkward, depressed, anxiety, what are the things that, Doug, we sort of did some research on, what are the things that we recommend to people who may find themselves or consider themselves in that place?
The unhirables, you know who you are. It's a very broad spectrum, and speaking first to folks who actually are on the autism spectrum, it's fascinating to learn that there are major organizations that are targeting people on the autism spectrum to hire. And not just as some diversity box to check, but because, and this goes to a tool, whether you're on the spectrum or just have similar anxieties that you may bring to the table, what is typical of folks who are going through that is that they have other skills that are very valuable to employers. There's an attention to detail, there's a focus. We all like to talk about creative, out-of-the-box thinking. It's a great phrase, and damn near none of us uses it because we are rote people. We know how we've analyzed something before, we know how we've approached it, and we will tend to do it over and over again. But for people that are on the spectrum, they can truly see things in a different way, and that is invaluable to an organization. So there are organizations like Google, Booz Allen, Deloitte, all have targeted programs trying to bring more of those folks into the workforce. But just for anyone, looking at what those strengths that come out of those challenges can be is a key, but also understanding that if you have social anxieties, if you do feel awkward in interviews, it goes very much back to the preparation we talked about. And some of this sounds a little bit goofy, but when you want to get that job, you can Google all the behavioral questions, all the weird questions that interviewers may ask. You can Google a bunch of them and then practice. In your car, when you're alone, ask the question in your head, give a response. Ask your friends, your family, to conduct mock interviews. Stand in front of a mirror and watch yourself. Not just hear the words that you're saying, but watch yourself. How do you appear? Or do you have a nervous tick that you might be able to work on? But that preparation, it becomes a matter, over time, those questions that are asked, and frankly, outside of the technical questions, which are typically the easier ones for folks in this industry, those other questions become, there's only 20 of them. We just couch them 300 different ways. So you'll be able to recognize this is the same question that I practiced, and I've said it so many times, it now just flows out of me naturally. You have to practice. You have to get someone else to practice with you. And if you do that enough, you get a comfort level, and that lowers your nervousness. As you get into an interview, and none of what I just said is working for you in the moment before the interview, take your hand, squeeze it really tight. I mean, drive your fingers into your fist. It is a physiological reaction, you will calm. It may not last forever, but it's a moment. I wouldn't do it in interviews, because that maybe looks a little bit scary. But before the interview, to calm yourself, those deep breaths that people talk about, absolutely work. These are physiological rules of nature that are not impacted by any social anxiety. The other details, you're going to an interview. If you have any sort of social anxiety, you're going to be nervous about everything. Plot the route, drive the route. Make sure that you can get there no matter what time of day, 10 to 15 minutes early. If you interview that early, go in about 5 minutes early. But get there early. Take that anxiety out of it. If you're going to be doing a phone or a Skype interview, make sure your phone works. Make sure Skype's going to work for you. Do it over and over again until you have the absolute confidence that there are not going to be any technical glitches, anything of that nature. So it becomes truly, for almost all of these supposedly unhireable traits, a matter of preparation. And if you're in the interview setting, if a question comes up that throws you for a second, take the deep breath, take a pause. No interviewer worth their salt is going to be upset by that. We like somebody who considers an answer. So take a moment, collect yourself, and then move into the answer. Don't tell them more than they've asked for. Stay focused on the questions, and if there's something that you don't know or you're confused about, ask for clarification. Admit, I'm not familiar with that. I have not worked with that flavor of Linux, but I've worked with this one and I think it crosses over. So I think the preparation is absolutely key, but also know that whatever you're perceiving to be an anxiety or a challenge for you to get the job that you want, first of all, chances are it seems a lot worse to you than it does to us. We are probably not going to pick up on it nearly as much as you might think. And two, there are undoubtedly inherent advantages to that. There are tools you've already developed to overcome it that you just need to accentuate, practice, and remind yourself that, again, even to the extreme of well down the autism spectrum, you actually have gifts. There are things that you are bringing to the table that likely very few of the people on this panel have. And focus on those, focus on how you can present them, and how you can let someone know this is an absolute strength of mine.
Great, thank you.
Actually, if I could add one thing in terms of preparation, you talk about the job that you want. I think too few people, when they're actually interview with more jobs than they should. Here's the thing, you're gonna stress the most out about the job you want. Interview for a job you don't want. And tell you what, you'll actually get the same amount of experience in that and feel a lot more comfortable when you go for that ideal job.
So what's interesting is a lot of people think a big part of the preparation is getting the job, and then they plop down in their seat or their cubicle, and they're like, okay, it's easy going from here. But a lot of people don't use the first few months of their new job to expand upon sort of their career and expand upon what they're going to do there. So I'm hoping our panelists were sort of, once you've hired somebody, what are some of the things that they should be doing, and what are some of the things that mistakes you've seen people do?
I would say the unique, no, I'm probably the last person who should be answering this question because I'm not a corporate recruiter. However, during my tenure at Booz Allen, when I was part of that team, the first thing that we sort of, when I hired someone to the team, I was like, it's going to be important for you to remember what it was like for you in college. So everything that you learned about being in college, try new things, introducing yourself to new people, check out new clubs. Something that gets you engaged in college is what you're going to do when you're here at Booz Allen. What do you want to be known for? And that's the mentality I would coach them coming into their first 3 months of Booz Allen. And it's important because what you think you want to be known for are the people you're going to engage with. They're going to sort of recommend you for your next job, your next assignment. I said, that's going to be important for your longevity within the firm. That would be true for any scenario. It's something that I've carried with me ever since my tenure there. I tell my kids this. What do you want to be known for when you get into that organization? Talk to the people who are going to help you achieve those goals. Don't wait for your job to come, to your current project to come to an end before you're looking for what's next. How do you want to be known as an individual within that firm? So that would be advice that I would give. It's what do you want to be known for and for what's next for you.
And before Kevin talks on this one, I would also say use that first few months to listen. Because I know a lot of people come into their first job and they're like, I'm the superstar, I'm the rock star, I'm going to be able to solve all of these companies' problems, that's why they hired me. And lo and behold, you've stepped on everyone's toes, you've pissed them off, no one wants to work with you, and you're out trying to find a job again. I've learned, this was something that someone gave me as a bit of advice 15, 20 years ago, was use the first 6 months as a learning opportunity. Your eyes are wide open. It's all new landscape. You don't need to correct all the problems and fix them. You just need to sort of gain that knowledge. Kevin?
And I do think in the beginning, you almost need to reaffirm what you were brought in to do and what the actual objectives are. A lot of folks come into a role and realize 3 months later, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. I mean, make those objectives figured out quickly with your boss, because you don't want to be in the wrong role for 6 months. You want to be making that change early if you have to.
So we're actually, Matt, Doug, do you have anything?
Just real quick. I know for your career development, you want to move on to things quickly. Just try to temper the, hey, those jobs are real interesting. I've been here 2 weeks. I want to apply for those. Right? do well in the job that you're in. Be clear and understand that this is how I'm performing. This is what I want to do. And how you're doing at that, and do those check-ins with you. Hopefully your manager's good enough to have those regular check-ins with you. But temper that. That's the job I want. I'm going to go after that after 2 weeks.
So we actually are out of time. I do want to say thank you so much for coming and listening to my friends, these recruiters who obviously are willing to give up their time to give back to the community. All of them are also going to be at the hiring happy hour at 3 o'clock doing resume reviews. So we're going to be available up here for questions afterwards, or one-on-one either now or later at the hiring happy hour. So let's thank my panelists.
Are you guys twins up front? It's been messing with me all day.
Just brothers.
Just brothers, okay. I was seeing doubles over there. It's messing with me at least 20 minutes.
No, sorry. You've got your table. So.
I'm happy to tell. I got people up there.
No.
Should be make sure I push you off.
Yeah, push me.
By everybody else also, that's all the recruiters are there. Sometimes companies are going to.
That one I don't know. That's a hard one.
Also allows
BOR. All they do is they try to pull stuff. Fill the pipeline. Qualify resumes.
Should begin for us spell it just first name, not last name.
I'm not saying that.
Oh, yeah, no worries. You just shoot me a message when you're ready.
Selling your resume to a company.
How's it going? How's it going?
Oh, yeah, that's not good. We actually do.
I literally be here like 1 o'clock tomorrow.
No,
I'm trying to work at from the recruiter side now, but we're trying to build applications to help my recruiter.
Yeah, no, I wanted to make the introduction.
I guess
He's really
as
interested in
opposed to
working fire and
using
everything, and
what are you missing?
really talented guy. So.
I would make it easier.
What was the last time I kept an eye on?
better search for
Oh my god, I have 25 text messages. What happened? I was filling my phone with a little
There's a lot of, just to speak back, they're plugging. You just need an influence for this. I use this.
Yeah, shoot me a message. Bear with me. I've literally had this for a few minutes today.
Calendar.
Go ahead, send it. I'll add you. Just don't expect me to get back in 2 hours. Do I say that? You guys make the right time, you might get it. Yeah, I'll be around here all day, so I'm grabbing something. I'll be in the hiring manager. I don't have to. But we'll be in there with a healthy contingent of folks.
Good. Yeah, I saw you have Andy here and
Yeah, Andy and Dee are here, and Jen should be here.
I realized my
Yeah, it is, no, yeah. I heard this. We can slightly. That's fine. If you want. That works. Let's go to this one.
He's so consistent.
You good? Do I just get started, or is there, just go?
I think, yeah, just come here.
Mike probably, right?
Test, test, test. Test, test.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good guy.
Hello. All right, I'm only like 3 minutes late. Oh, I need. I'm only like 3 minutes late. Now I can actually get started. So there's been a lot of changes over the last couple of years. We gave this talk out at DEF CON, and after talking to some of the organizers, we thought, you know, it'd be good to bring this talk East Coast. So Wi-Fi, we run the Wireless Village, so we're kind of involved in this stuff on a pretty regular basis. Wow, that's way off the screen. Hey, so who cares about this slide anyway? So I do some stuff. I've been doing some stuff in wireless for quite a while. We started the Wireless Village about 15 years ago at DEF CON, and it's been going ever since. We've been here for 4 or 5 years now at this point. We do a lot of the conferences local. Half of what I say is probably going to be a bunch of bullcrap, so you know, this is just some stuff that says that what I said is right. So, thanks to the GDPR, we created this slide. More so, we created this sticker. So we have this sticker all over DEF CON this year. All your RF belong to us. We can hear just about anything. RF is so prevalent these days. With Bluetooth, Bluetooth low energy, IoT, you know, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth low energy, it's literally everywhere. But because we've been working with this stuff for so long, we've been able to kind of keep up with the times. So you see the dongles up here. I think we were joking. On the way over here, we had a Suburban full of stuff. And I think I counted 87 radios in our car. And that was like about almost normal for a normal day of work. So between software-defined radios, Bluetooth radios, Wi-Fi radios, gosh, now Zigbee, and we're even dealing with some non-Bluetooth and non-wireless, non-Bluetooth 2.4 gigahertz signals. It's just an insane amount of stuff that we have to carry. So what we wanted to do is kind of bring this talk to you guys to show you some of the tools that are out there, some new tools that will allow some really, really cool capabilities, and also kind of just give you an idea of what's going on that we're seeing that's out in the field. So Bluetooth and Bluetooth low energy, BLE. Does anybody understand the difference between the two? Because most people don't get the difference between the two. Bluetooth has been around forever, since version 1. I don't know if you guys remember those little Linksys dongles that they came out with originally, had a little antenna on it. We figured out a long time ago that if you take that wire off, clip on an SMA cable, solder it to the board, we can put a high gain antenna on it. We were getting almost a quarter mile with Bluetooth. Bluetooth by standard is about 100 feet. So that was cool, that was fun. You know, we were kind of hacking Bluetooth. Was able to, early days, get my car to start. I had a Mini Cooper that had a Bluetooth radio in it, and it actually was tied into the system. We were actually able to get it start remotely with the Bluetooth radio. So early days of car hacking before Charlie, you know, tried to crash the car into the Michigan Turnpike. So Bluetooth Low Energy is fairly recent upcoming. Bluetooth Low Energy kind of took where Bluetooth was, gives you similar range, but the power can go for months on a button battery. So Bluetooth Low Energy, you're going to start finding in watches, you're going to start seeing in Fitbits. Marketing devices are actually the biggest thing. I don't know if you guys can see it. This little guy is about 3/4 high and about the size of a quarter. Is a Bluetooth Low Energy transmitter. Now, we use these for the Foxes, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But marketing companies use these to advertise their websites, to give information out. This will go directly to your phone. Your phone will pair to it, and it will actually give you a message on your screen. Hey, you're in Walmart. You just recently bought toilet paper, so you might need some hand sanitizer too. I don't know. Some kind of marketing people will come up with something that'll work. But this will literally last for 3 months or 4 months off a little battery. They're low power, but they react a little bit differently than the way Bluetooth does. So the air is kind of crazy right now. There's 2.4 to 5 gigahertz. AX, 802.11ax is coming out, and they're looking to go from 1 gigahertz to 7 gigahertz over Wi-Fi. We then compare that with 2.4 gigahertz. We had to jump out of 2.4 for Wi-Fi and go to 5 gigahertz because the 2.4 space was so polluted. So now we're sitting here with Bluetooth devices, and Bluetooth Low Energy, all polluting the same space. So we said, you know what, this would be really fun to mess with. Bluetooth is everywhere. So when we turn a couple things on, if you have a Bluetooth device on, we're not going to do anything to it, but leave it on because it'll be funny to see who we can pick out in the audience based on their names. There's a couple different radios. So up here on this, I've got an internal radio. The internal radio is just what came with my laptop. It's a Bluetooth 5. I think it's an Intel 8500 card. We've got a UD100, which is an industrial Bluetooth radio. This gives us, with the right antennas, about a half mile at this point. We've got an Ubertooth, which gives you a little bit better job with some of the other tools that exist, with some of the low energy. But what it does is it actually enumerates out that low energy device and gives us more data. Really, really cool, especially because of how prevalent it is. Gosh, the screens are horrible. So I don't want to read this to you, but it's a technology that uses 2.4 to 2.485 gigahertz. It's, again, very, very prevalent. The problem we have is the Bluetooth special interest group is what runs it, not the IEEE. So Bluetooth kind of goes off in all these weird tangents, which is great, but it's not standard across the board. So one radio may go a little, 30 feet, another radio and another device might go 100. So the standard we have to actually play with a little bit to get some direction finding. What all of this is rolling up to is going to be how to track devices. So we're trying to figure out different ways of doing this based on weird standards that alter. So it's everywhere and it's unmonitored. How many of you have Bluetooth IDSs with you? Right? Oh, really? Who makes it? Okay, cool. Would love to talk to you because Bluetooth monitoring is really, really hard. And Bluetooth monitoring is hard because of the way Bluetooth pairs. So Bluetooth Low Energy, on the other hand, actually runs a little bit differently, but the radios are incorporated into the Bluetooth devices on the actual laptops. Your speakers, your headphones, your cars, those kinds of things, all are running at these different frequencies within the same space with different profiles. So a couple years ago, actually I think it's been 2 years now, Rick Farina, Zero Chaos, one of our partners in the Wireless Village, developed this tool called Blue Hydra. Who's used it? Who's used? Okay. So this will be a new tool for you. It is on his GitHub page, Zero Chaos, Blue Hydra. It is incorporated into Pen2, which is the operating system we use for our capture the flags. But what Blue Hydra does is something really cool. It actually takes the airspace that it can see and puts distance vectors based on power into your screen so you know how far a device is away from you. Now this is going to work with Bluetooth, Low Energy, and Bluetooth, and it's going to use either one of these radios. It kind of bounces back and forth for you. When you kick it off, you kind of get the splash screen, and it did something earlier to make it a little bit easier to see. Wow, that's perfect. There we go. Can you roll it forward, or is it locked in? There we go. Awesome. Hacking it done. Woo! All right. So it's going to give you a whole bunch of labels. So it's going to give you whether it's classic 4.0, Bluetooth low energy, or low energy 4.1, which is a newer version of Bluetooth low energy. So instead of talking about it, I'd rather show you. So hopefully, let's see. It's this one. There we go. So we kick off Blue Hydro. Does that work? Nope, not quite. There we go. All right, so within the space that we're seeing right now, and the colors are a little off there, not sure if the camera's going to see it. You've got a whole bunch of devices going on the screen. Let's see, Slim. There we go. There's one. So Slim has a laptop. If Slim wants to raise their hand and let us know who that is, that would be kind of cool and maybe fun. But these devices are actually beaconing out based on your friendly name of your device. The fact that it's Bluetooth Classic is going to come into play a little bit later, so we'll keep an eye on that. Video camera is here. There's a Mevo. I think that's this guy over here. Somebody's carrying a tile around. If I unpause this, we're going to scan back again. Some Emicore devices, some of the marketing. Somebody's wearing a charge. There's Anonymous going across on their smartphone. So you kind of get the idea. This is up in the air. This is data that's going across. And in testing this tool, we were actually testing at a coffee shop, and I live up in Baltimore. One of the people that was actually running for Congress had their phone paired to their name, Tesla, also paired to their iPhone, paired to their Bose headsets. Very, very vain person, because every single device they had was in their name. So I went up to him and I said, hey, sir, just FYI, do computer security, do a lot of stuff in the RF and wireless space. I can track you to your bedroom right now. He's like, what are you talking about? And I showed him what I was. Well, he had no idea. Well, that kind of leads us to where this problem starts to exist. Tracking a human based on their digital persona is getting easier and easier and easier because of all these devices. When we take their Bluetooth persona and we take their Wi-Fi persona, their beacons that are coming out of their phones and their laptops and everything else, and then we use something like Wiggle online, where we can actually go on and say, hey, you know what, wiggle.net, I want to know what's in the 21642 zip code, and I want to know what's on Main Street. Well, all of a sudden, these names pop up. Or I want to search based on an SSID or a wireless friendly name for Governor blah blah's, Wi-Fi. Well, you can get addresses for people. You can do reconnaissance on people and places online before you've ever even seen that RF signal. So RF used to be you had to be in that space, and that's what we all love about it, is you had to be fairly close but didn't have to plug in. Now we can actually go online and track some of this stuff. So with this tool, Blue Hydro, you run it, try to stop it. Let's see, it's off the screen again. Just pull it up. Live demos on stage, always working. It's always VAV that's the fun part. So in this case, what I did was I put no info in. If I just run Blue Hydro by itself, it's going to scroll across the screen. It's going to scroll in green across the screen and not be very visible to anybody. So that's not helpful whatsoever. All right, so let me let that sit for a second. As they start to go out of green, they'll start to come up onto the screen. So what we're seeing here isn't too helpful whatsoever. Here we go, now they're starting to pop up. So what it ends up doing is it comes up green. Green means it was just seen. It then goes to yellow. Yellow means, hey, it's been out for a couple seconds or more, and then it goes to white when it starts to time out. I have this in speed mode, so it's just rolling through them as quickly as it can. Now what I can also do with this is set filters up, set filters to specific targets if I have them, and start tracking that way. This is all just Bluetooth that's in space of these radios right now. When we sit over in the village, it's even crazier. What's interesting though is you'll see occasionally a range come up. Let's see if this guy's on. So on the right-hand side, there's a range button, 0.06 meters. That's this little guy here, that's this little device. It gives me the manufacturer name, the RSSI or the power, and then tells me a range. Well, it actually takes the range of the device based on the power that it's transmitting from, based on the OUI, based on the MAC address, and it will give you a distance vector away from that. Now, this gets really cool because now we can not only target something, hey, somebody's in this room, but somebody's in this room and they're 0.06 meters from me. Well, there's not much in there, so you can start tracking. We play a Bluetooth version of Capture the Flag and a wireless fox hunt with exactly these tools to get people to start saying, hey, by the way, if you've got devices on you, they're not going to be as secure as you think, even if the device is completely locked down, because it's beaconing out. And we have tools to start seeing this. This makes it fun for us, makes it really hard for the contestants, because unfortunately, when they're out in all this space, they're running around, they're trying, the fox is trying to run away from them, they're trying to chase it, and they're in between all these, big bodies of water, which does horrible attenuation to radio, and you can't catch it as easily. So this is a game that we play. If you're interested in it, stop by the village. We can show you a little bit more how to do it. But this is one of the tools that we use. Zero did an amazing job setting this up, and it works really, really well. Again, it's on Pensu by default, and it's on GitHub as well. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right, so that's Blue Hydra. Something new, though. So layer 2 is an interesting beast. Layer 2 is interesting because it's dealing with the physical layer. Well, Bluetooth works at the physical layer too, just like wireless does. So we're always dealing with MAC addresses. So I was kind of thinking through this. It's like, hey, layer 2 is kind of cool. Who's heard of layer 2 ping? L2 ping? Networking guys, telecom? Okay. So L2 ping goes across layer 2 on Bluetooth using the physical layer to attach to a device that has an open socket. I was like, that's kind of neat, but what can we really do with this? So we got to talking, and I was like, hey, Rick, what can we actually accomplish with this? I'd like to start tracking something. He's like, well, L2 ping is actually used in Blue Hydra to do some of the vector testing, but it's really just there as another check. It's like, hey, is it there? Yep, it's there. Okay, cool. So this is just the man page from L2 ping, but as we're reading through it, it's like, huh. So I can tell L2 ping to go out of a specific radio. So if I have HCI 0, which is typically your internal Bluetooth, okay, that's neat. But what if I start sticking external Bluetooth radios or something that's going to advertise itself as Bluetooth? Okay, cool, we can add this in. Packet size, packet count, not so big. Ping flood, huh. If we use a TAC-F in this, we can now flood that device and start getting data back. Okay, this is kind of cool. So I'm driving down the road, and I'm thinking, we can track this. Crap, that's right. So Bluetooth uses a master-slave connection. So you have your master device, which is the device connecting to the peripheral, and then you've got the peripheral. Well, the peripheral actually takes the MAC address of the master device when they connect, which doesn't allow you to track the peripheral anymore. So it kind of disappears, but we still have, some information. Well, what we found was, the only time these devices come into Blue Hydra is when they're in pairing mode. So if you have your phone, and the use case we use and we absolutely love is we were on a train, and everybody gets on the train. Who takes us the metro or the train sometime? We're in DC, right? Everybody does. They pop out, they sit down on the train, they grab their bag, they throw their headphones on, they pair their headphones, and they start riding, and they fall asleep, and nobody talks to anybody anymore. It's a really cold world. But they pair with their radio. So it's like, cool, okay. So during that pairing, we're able to see the device. Neat. That gives us a little bit of information. It gives us the MAC address of the Bluetooth and or the Bluetooth low energy or Bluetooth device that they're connecting to. This is cool. But it really doesn't solve our problem because when Bluetooth isn't pairing, it is dead silent. It does not talk whatsoever. In fact, when, let's see, unpause that. And it's huge. My Apple Watch uses a Bluetooth radio. I use an Apple Watch for a very specific reason. A, because my wife is an absolute Apple fanboy. And B, because it's actually a really comfortable, decent watch. What we found is they're also a heck of a lot more secure than Android watches. And the reason behind it is the Apple Watch doesn't beacon out ever. So you will not see my Apple Watch pop through this screen unless I do something to it to make it pair. Well, Apple Watches, Fitbits, all kinds of things like that are interesting to watch because in many cases, they're named the same as the person using it. So this one says Rick's Apple Watch. I mean, there's very little places to change that. The Garmin's and some of the others will either say they're a Garmin, or if they're paired to another types of phone, and the phone has the right name, it's going to give up that person's name. So it's like, maybe we can figure out a way to get some information. So I was driving down the road taking my kids to a swim meet because they swim and that means I'm in the car literally all the time. And we had this idea. I was like, hey dude, listen, we need to come up with a way to track phones. I deal with some folks that need to track people on a relatively regular basis. And phones are the biggest problem because, happily or sadly, everybody carries a phone. People use burners, people use repeat phones, people use phones that aren't as available as, maybe they're, another device that they might have. They're not always carrying their laptop, they're not always carrying their tablet. Those people have, does anybody not have a phone on them right now? We're doing this whole security conference thing, leave my phone at home, turn off all electronics. Okay. Everybody probably has their phone with them because that's how you're on Discord and Slack and Terminal and work and everything else that you're doing. So like, a phone is a pretty standard thing on a person. Well, cars are now becoming a lot neater too because cars have Bluetooth in them. Cars have Bluetooth in them because a lot of states regulate that you have to have some sort of hands-free device in order to drive and talk on the phone. Everybody talks on the phone all the time. So we're like, okay, so we got a car, we got a phone. Those are two really, really nice things to start adding to our dossier of tracking. So Blue Sonar happened. We called it Submarine initially because what it's doing is it's using a layer 2 ping to validate that a device exists. What we found was really interesting is every device with a Bluetooth radio that's on will answer a ping if it is pinged. So think about that for a second. Your computer has to be on a network. It always has a wireless radio, but it's not always on the network. You can't ping your wireless radio externally. But we can ping every single Bluetooth device that exists if we know the MAC address. And we get the MAC address a couple of ways. We can get it when somebody is pairing, and that's part of the reason. We can also get it when we scan an area over time. When a device comes on, Bluetooth radio beacons out. When something pairs, it beacons out. They pair when people get in their cars. They pair when they get home and it connects to their smart home, their hub, their speakers, their Sonos, whatever it is. It pairs every time that screen comes up for Bluetooth. So if somebody goes to turn their Bluetooth off, it still pops up broadcasting out the Bluetooth because the manufacturers of these devices want life to be easy for you. They want you to be able to say, I want to connect to this, and when I open up my Bluetooth, I want it to connect, and it will do that for you. Well, that's kind of a problem, and it's a problem because now we have that bit of information. So as soon as it stops pairing, it goes silent, and you can't see it. Well, again, talking about my Apple Watch, no, that's still flying. Let's kill that guy. Why not type it down? There we go. All right, so what I did was I set up this device, or this demo, with my watch, and I did my watch for a really interesting reason. For demo purposes, it does a really good job. So, Blue Sonar is looking for my watch, and I'm wearing my watch. Now, if you notice, the RISI, or the power rating, is getting bigger as I'm moving away. It is sensitive enough that I can start moving my watch in any direction, and it's going to alter the power rating almost immediately. So as I start to walk away, it gets bigger. As I get closer, it gets smaller. Put this visualization in with the hash marks or the pound sign to kind of give you a better representation. But as you're tracking someone, you're literally tracking them down to the I'm up on top of you with this device. And this is just off the internal radio. If I go to one of the other radios, I can start tracking people from in this room. If I put a panel antenna on this, I can track people within the hotel. Now, Bluetooth device that's on you all the time, that is now fully trackable, gets a bit scary. So there's some use cases on this that we can talk about on stage, and there's some use cases that we can talk about other places. But let's just talk about it in terms of security of yourself. That device that you're carrying has a MAC address that is standard that you can't alter. In most devices, you can change your MAC address. It's got the ability to answer to a ping, whether or not you want it to or not. So, one defense against this, those of you that have Android devices, if you go into developer mode, you have the ability with your Bluetooth radio to actually say, I only want to make X connections at a time. And those X connections could be 1, 2, 20, whatever it is. Typically about 7 is where you start to degrade some signal. But you can actually alter it so that if you know you have headphones and you have a car, I'm only going to allow that device to connect to 2 devices, and it won't answer the ping. Alternatively, if you are super, super scared of being followed and tracked, taking this tool and using it to your advantage. So what we found is, if you have a Raspberry Pi with a battery pack, and you run a script against yourself, running it on a continuous basis, you basically hold up all of the sockets that are available for ping, and your device isn't trackable. I don't necessarily love this as a solution. I think it's pretty dirty. I don't think it's extremely easy. And who's going to always remember to grab a Raspberry Pi, start a script, stick it in your bag, and carry it with you? Turning Bluetooth off does fix this. Problem I have with that answer is we've been saying that for 10 years and nobody listens. So why is anybody going to listen now? So if you have people that you work with that you're trying to protect, now let's forget about yourself because, you know, we're all at a security conference, so we're all uber paranoid, and, you know, we patch all of our stuff and we turn our radios off when we're not using them, and do all these things that we tell people to do. This gives you, really? No, you don't? At all? You sure?
No.
Oh, all right.
I know where you are all the time.
Having the ability to give people an example of this is going to give you the ability to get some awareness out there. There's never been, that we've seen in the industry, a reason that people should absolutely turn things off. We tell people all the time, you have wired headphones, turn your Bluetooth off when you're on a plane. A plane is a big metal tube with signals bouncing around, and there's hackers on a plane. Anybody heard of that before? Okay, right? So you have 3 hours, or if you're flying cross country, 6 hours with a laptop and the internal radios. You get some hackers that know what they're doing and get a little bored over that 6 hours. Weird stuff starts to happen. I mean, Snapdragon flew a plane sideways apparently, and the FBI met him at the gate. You know, it's, you know, open Ethernet ports. By the way, that whole story is mostly fake, not completely fake. And he did try and disclose that. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to disclose a vulnerability in an entire suite of tools that there really isn't a lot of mitigation on. Now, to that end, if you are, any pen testers here? Anybody clicks their Bix on a regular basis to test it, make sure it works? Yeah. Still right with those things? This is a really nice tool to add to your arsenal. Having the ability to track someone to a place, if it's within your rules of engagement, that is less protected than where they work, if you can get approval to do it. We've gotten approval quite a few times in recent years on getting CEOs in play, CIOs, CFOs, CTOs, that kind of thing, heads of networking, heads of administration, those. To be able to say, hey, you know what, your vulnerabilities extend well beyond just the workplace. They extend back to those people's, you know, residence houses. Again, everybody gets a little, you know, touchy-feely about that. I don't want them coming to my house. Well, do you think the bad guys care if you want them coming to your house? I mean, I always have been a bit paranoid, and we were setting up to capture the flag about 5 or 6 years ago. Actually, Justin in the back of the room was sitting in my kitchen with me, and we were testing the capture the flags. Well, next thing I know, I find out there was a pizza car out front, and we got pizza, and I looked outside, there's a pickup truck. I was like, whatever, I'm gonna live on the cul-de-sac. Turns out it was one of the contestants from the Capture the Flag sitting outside expecting us to be setting things up, and he got it, and he did amazing. We ended up having to flip the keys that morning so that they couldn't, you know, win based on just sitting there and collecting handshakes. So to think you may not get followed isn't exactly a viable solution these days, because all of us have something interesting to give up to someone else, and we're probably not as protected at home as we probably think we are. One of the use cases we use with this, and I'll let your imaginations kind of run, is there's a building or a compound or a fort or a set of fences, and inside of those fences are some people that we want to get access to. Well, we don't know who's in the building because, you know, we don't have global surveillance all the time, and they've got underground entrances into the building, but we want to know who's inside. So what we do is we scan across, And we look for Bluetooth devices, we look for Wi-Fi devices, we look for probes. Then we go up the road a little ways where we know one of those vehicles may leave, and we turn on Blue Sonar based on those MAC addresses, and we wait for that device to get close to us. We now can get a picture of and or talk to and or do whatever, you guys can decide how that wants to work, without ever breaking a single law. Because sniffing Bluetooth hasn't been deemed illegal yet. Sniffing cell phones is, but I can still track you on your cell phone without breaking any laws. Sniffing Wi-Fi, sort of illegal thanks to Google, but we're not breaking anything. We're literally just using layer 2 to find a device. So there's a lot of places where this can be really helpful. We do run this as one of the Foxes. We've got a Samsung Galaxy that we run throughout the building. People need to look for. And that is a completely unmodified, fully patched, regular, fully working Samsung device that is on, but nothing else. And they are able to track it pretty quick, almost faster than some of the other Bluetooth devices. So again, we're going to write security down as an answer, but we're going to actually talk about it in different terms. This is kind of creepy. If somebody wants to find you, everybody's got their own internal use cases. Some people don't want to be found by other people, whether it be, an ex, boyfriend, girlfriend, friend, ex-customer, there's all kinds of reasons that you want to make sure that things are protected from your perspective. So that's Blue Sonar. Blue Sonar is really powerful. It is, like I said, it's in Pen 2. It's also available on GitHub. It is extremely powerful, and it will track anything you tell it to track. Within the tool, I just wanted to kind of show a couple things because there are some options here, which is different from some of the other things we run. It just runs with Blue Sonar. So you've got some options here. So you can specify a target, which obviously we're going to want to. You tell it how much you want it to sleep. So let's say that you have a long-term thing that you're trying to find. Letting it sleep for a second is okay. Letting it sleep for like a quarter of a second means it's probing constantly. It's ping flooding the air, which is how that part of the tool works, and it gives you as much information as you can get. You can tell it which device you want it to run off of within your system, whether you want to run HCI 0, HCI 1, 2, 3, 4, or 20. We had a contest that we ran down in North Carolina, and somebody had one of these 10-port hubs full of USB devices, sniffing multiple MAC addresses simultaneously. They ended up knocking it out of the park with like 6 devices in 15 or 20 minutes. We were working that outside on a 40-acre plot with houses and housing and buildings and all kinds of things. And they were able to just clear the place very, very quickly. You can tell it to sleep between pings. So let's say you want to be quieter for whatever reason you need to. It'll sleep for you. And then verbose mode, which actually, let's see, where's it go? If I can do that, there we go. So it's flying through, and the watch isn't even able to keep up with the amount of pings that it's throwing at it, and this is giving you all the information as you go. Now, you can still see the bar, which is why we did the red and white, because as soon as it goes all red, you can't really see it anymore. This can be helpful if you're doing any type of troubleshooting or you're really trying to get a good distance vector for yourself. At the end, it tells you what the minimum and the max RSSI or power rating was. 0 when I was like literally right up on it, negative 29 when I pulled it back. So very capable, very fast tool because all it's doing is using internal tools that most Linux distributions already have. So that's one thing. Now, what I'm about to show you isn't brand new. I apologize for that. But the implementation of it is absolutely amazing, and I don't think a lot of people know about it. Who has actually heard of MouseJack? Read about it? Okay. Who's done it? Okay. Most people haven't because A, flashing the firmware on these radios was a royal pain in the butt. Getting the radios was even more difficult until recently. But on top of that, it wasn't well known. Now, what MouseJack does is it allows you to take over any device running a wireless mouse and keyboard that's within a list of vulnerable devices. Those vulnerable devices are most Logitech. Anybody ever use a Logitech mouse or keyboard? Yeah. Microsoft and Dell. Okay? There's other wireless mice and keyboards out there, but not a ton. So what we found is with this, it was a very difficult tool to use, but we love RF. We love doing radio frequency work, so I was like, let's figure it out. So Rick, and again, Zero Chaos, guy that writes Pen 2, can't give him enough love or credit. He would be here, but he's at home at some sort of breakfast with Santa or something this week, I don't know. He was like, you know what, let's make this easy. So he took MouseJack, and he implemented it directly into Pen 2. Again, Pen 2 is a live distribution. You can pull it down online. You can run it as a live CD. You don't have to install it. Gen 2 is tough to use. Anybody that was in the class yesterday, it took us a little while to get everybody up to speed. We taught the learning curve is angled this way. Most learning curves are this way. It's kind of a backwards learning curve. You got to go backwards, forget everything you know, and then start moving forward. But for specific tools, it does a great job. Typing MouseJack from a root terminal tells you the firmwares that are supported. Nordic Semiconductor bootloader, the Crazy Radio PA firmware, RF Storm Research, and Logitech basic dongles. So the unified dongles that Logitech sells can now be flashed directly out of Pen 2 with one click of a button. So basically you install you put it in your USB port, MouseJack Logitech install, and it will flash that device for you. So we don't have to go through any firmware, any crazy updates, anything outside of just running a command. Also implemented recently was Jacket. Jacket is a tool that will allow you to take over a mouse and keyboard while it's running. Any mouse and keyboard. We run hardened Pen 2, updating the kernel on a regular basis, and making massive modifications to it regularly. We were testing it yesterday in class before the class started. Anybody know Wasabi? He's sitting there with this stuff. I was like, hey dude, here, do me a favor, plug my mouse in for you. It's like, all right. He had the slides up that we were doing. I just ran literally an open notebook, start new page with a Ducky script. Ducky scripts, for those that don't know, Hack5 wrote a Ducky language years ago that is basically kind of a combination of really ugly Perl and some basic and some ways of interpreting commands in pretty Darren-friendly, usable language. And I love you, Darren. And it'll just take those scripts. So the Ducky script I had was literally open up a notebook and say, hello world. While I'm watching his screen, the slides that I was working on, he was working on too. New slide opened up and typed hello world. Hardened Gen 2 with slides open, and it started running into it. Now, that means that sudo open terminal xterm sudo su ssh reverse shell back to whatever and give me a port and a screen on that device would just be as easy as him using that mouse for me. So completely implemented into Pen 2, fully functional, and jokingly tested. I was carrying around the Windows machine just so that I could do the testing on this. Turns out I don't even need to do that. It works on Macs, Linux, and Windows, and anything that will run the mouse driver. Now that being said, this is what happens when you do it. So instead of actually, talking about it, let's try it. We got a screen somewhere. Let's just use this one. CD, home user, scripts, jacket, reset. So when you type in reset, if you know how to type, reset, what it does, it puts the radio back into a default mode. If you just run the script and you run it again and run it again, it's already in an injection mode. So if you reset every time, it seems to work better. Ducky. All right, is this going to be green again? That would be really sad if it was. Okay, cool. So I have this plugged in. Is it turned on? Oh, there we go. All right, so it's already picking up. Now this might be me, it might not be. I actually don't know. But it's going to scan out for anything running a wireless mouse and keyboard. Now, this is using the Crazy PA radio with a 2.4 gigahertz, like 5.5 dBi antenna. So it's getting some decent range. So let's just hit Control C, and it's going to say, which you can't read here, select all, or select that. Oh, it stopped. Oh, that stinks. See, live demos never work. Let's see what hence why we never do live demos. It's falling out for some reason. Okay, so live demos fail. Awesome. I didn't abort to the demo guides properly. But what it's going to do, and what it typically does, and I need to figure out why it's not working. Oh, it's probably because it's on the same computer. That's why. Anybody have a computer? I won't do that to you because I actually don't know what it's going to do on a device that's not one that's preset on this one. It's going to go out and it's going to implement that command on that device. Like I said, with a Windows device on a separate system, it's going to actually pop it into a terminal, open it up, and go from there. Let's see. So this is what the screen looks like when it works properly. It'll actually, and this may not actually be this device, it'll actually label it as a Logitech HID device. It gives you the packets that it's running. It gives you the information. Those packets can actually be replayed, which is another script you can run, basically replay. It's going to then send the attack to that address, which is the MAC address of the USB, and then it's going to run the attack. In this particular instance, that was the one we ran against Wasabi, and it did take well. It's a really, really cool implementation. It's not a new tool. I'm not in any way saying that this is new or invented by us in any way, shape, or form, but it was implemented into Pen2 very recently, and it works really, really well. So if you don't want to go out and buy a new dongle, and you already have a USB device and a Logitech device, you have the ability to use that right away, right out of the box. Now, that being said, you will lose the ability to use that mouse and keyboard, but if you already know it's vulnerable, do you really want to keep it anyway? So RF hunting and tracking. So we take all this information and we put it into a big package. And that big package is this particular target, you know, because you get your documentation, you take your notes. This particular target has these radios, these wireless keyboards, these MAC addresses, and we put that into a script. So what you end up doing is you pull up to whatever your target is. You've got your laptop, your Raspberry Pi, whatever it is that you're using as your attack machine in your bag. You've got a phone SSH'd into it. You've got all your stuff preset, ready to go. You're clicking it off your phone. You could be sitting in the lobby of the place that you're working with or against and start running these attacks. But you need to make sure that you're using absolutely the right radios, the right antennas, and the right configuration and setup. The only way to do this is to test your equipment. This is my little soapbox, and you guys are here, and not everybody's leaving, so I'm going to tell you about it. Testing your equipment is so vital, right, Asaka? Testing your equipment before you get into a conference. So what we find is people come into the conference, we set up the wireless capture the flag to allow people to have a shooting range, to have a target set to test all this stuff. What they end up doing, because everybody's always prepared for these kinds of things, they show up that day, they're still loading the operating system, they just bought new radios, they just bought new antennas, they have no idea what they do. They're getting results and like, I don't know if this is right or wrong. What we recommend people do is they actually test their equipment. The best way that we have found to test your equipment is outside in a known environment, typically like a football field or something that's labeled and marked. You stand at one end with your radios, with your antennas, with your configurations and setups. You put a router or something at the other end, a Bluetooth device, a router, a keyboard, mouse, whatever it is you're testing, and you stand at 100 yards away. You get a reading. You walk up to 95 yards away, you get a reading. They're already marked for you, it's easy. And you take those readings and you write them down. Anybody ever do any shooting, like sniper shooting? You have a dope scope book, right? Where you actually have all of your data. Windage, time, angle, you know, whatever it is, humidity, wind, all of these things go into play. Well, if you're doing this and it's something that you enjoy and or want to do professionally, it's really helpful to know how your equipment's going to react. So you get that information and now all of a sudden you know with this radio and this antenna combo and this laptop, I can get a quarter mile away from a target and still get really good data. Or, I know with this setup, I've got to be literally right on top of them. And sometimes that's better than having that distance to stand on. So you go through this, you get your power readings with whatever tool you're running with, you know, the example of Aerodome, and then you take really good notes. And you hold on to those notes. And you label your antennas. There's a guy that we had a talk at DEF CON. It was an absolute abomination. But the talk itself brought out some really good information. One of which was there was a guy who actually names every one of his radios. He names every one of his antennas. Now, his names are kind of silly and pretty funny, and I don't know that they're, you know, good for public consumption. But he knew exactly what radio did what with what antenna and what setup and what configuration. down to what hub he was using based on the power that was coming out of that hub and the measurements and everything else. That guy was able to target within feet of most of his targets. And again, when we're dealing with this type of stuff, you know, you don't want to necessarily, let's say you have a ducky script that's going to do a reverse shell back to you and you have a target and you know what you're looking for. Well, you don't want to send it to the wrong person. You don't want to send it to the, you know, the admin when you're going after the sysadmin. You know, you don't want to send it to the wrong person because you're looking for specific data. So having this kind of information in the targeting distance is huge. When you're doing direction finding, again, I still believe it, and I say it, anybody that's heard me speak has always heard me say this, so I apologize for those that have heard it. Direction finding is the single most important tool and or capability you can have in wireless. Whether it is RF from a software-defined radio perspective, 2.4 gigahertz radios, 5 gigahertz, Bluetooth, whatever have you, having the ability to direction find means from defensive, you can find a rogue access point. You can find a loud talker. You can find somebody on your network. I was called up to a place in New York. It was like the size of all three of these rooms together. Tables, not even cubes, lined up. It was a code factory. Literally, they were just building out code. 400,000 square feet of people just sitting, and there was a rogue device. They called me up like, we can't find it. We have no idea what to do. So I did some stuff, pulled out some data, found where roughly, you know, within this much space where the data was, pulled out this little tiny log antenna that was, you know, highly directional. Walked up to the seat where I thought it was. The guy was with me. He's like, there's no way you did this. I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, are you carrying a Wi-Fi with you? The guy's like, oh yeah, the Wi-Fi here is horrible. I have to use it. It's like, here's your device. They walked out. They confiscated it. They walked out. Apparently that guy was stealing code. So it worked out well, but it's not a skill that everybody can just do. Walk into a space like this and, you know, find Osaka's radio. I'll keep picking on her because we pick on her all the time. But find the device that she's using. Finding a rogue access point that's broadcasting out your SSID at work could be helpful. It could make you kind of important around there. So the best way to do it is 2 radios. It can be done with 1. 2 radios is ideal. One with a directional antenna, one with an omni antenna. You stand in a space and you literally walk in a circle. As you're going in that circle, when the directional has the same power rating change as your omni, you're facing the right direction. Now the numbers are going to be off. You're going to have a stronger signal with your directional than you are with your omni when you're on the right vector. But as soon as you have that, you now know, okay, I need to walk in this direction, and I'm about, I don't know, 100 yards away based on my signal. So I put the omni down and start walking. Well, as soon as that signal changes, I know that I need to change my vector. It's very similar to following a compass. You tell people that are in the woods, trust your compass. Well, in this case, trust your radios, trust the output. But only when you know what the output's going to say and you know that it's predictable for you. So once the power setting gets into like the neg 30s, and this is again with a tool called Aerodome, which I can show if we have time at the end. But once you get to about negative 30 from an RSSI or power rating, you're within touching range. Now it might be, you know, this much space here, but you're able to get close enough up that you can actually then really start to judge. Then you get the crappiest, absolute worst craptastic antenna you can find. Told Wasabi this, he ended up taking a BNC connector, siliconing in a paper clip, and putting it on his radio. Well, it takes the ohm weight, it takes the load off of your radio, but you've got to be within feet of what you're looking for to find it. So the best stuff is nice initially, but then you get down to the crappiest stuff you have with the lowest power so that you can get close enough to actually start seeing things. Then once you're operationally close to the target, touch, destroy, gather information, do whatever it is you need to do. Your next steps are going to depend on what you're trying to do. Wireless targeting with highly directional is very similar to being a sniper. So you have somebody that's helping watch, you have your system, you have your vector, and you have your target, and you start moving in. From a distance, wireless and RF targeting is very difficult. You literally have to have lasers and or GPSs to do it. But with the right team, with the right views, with the right scopes, you can actually get wireless 2 or 3 miles. We did a line of sight contest at DEF CON, God, it was like DEF CON 11 or 12. And the group that won rented a hot air balloon, flew it over the horizon, and made a wireless B shot, and actually got pings across, I think it was like 25 miles. It was insane. But they understood wireless enough to know that they had to get above the horizon, they had to get outside of the fade and Fresnel zones, and they made the shot, and it worked. Again, I keep going back to it because it's important. Go out, try it. If you've got radios with you, go do it. Pen, paper, radio, laptop, endpoint target. See what you can find. Have fun. These are our coins. We've been doing coins for a couple years. We are giving out coins to the winner of the wireless capture the flag. We are also doing a black badge this year, again, for B-Sides. Thank you, B-Sides. So if you win, black badge, lifetime admission. I think somebody in the audience may have one. I don't know, the same person I've been picking on. Saga, take a bow. All right, sit back down. Oh, you already did? And we've got some really cool sponsors that sell a lot of the really cool stuff that we show. They've got some amazing equipment. Civil Wi-Fi, some of the best antennas out there. Hack5, thank you. Pen 2 and all the others. So that's what I got. Any questions? Yes?
When you're tracking with Blue Sonar, are you vulnerable to being tracked with Blue Sonar? With another one?
It is only pinging if there were a Bluetooth intrusion detection system that was functional and worked well, it would see the pings. It wouldn't look a whole lot different than the heartbeat threshold that a device would have that's connecting to something else. Yes, you would be relatively vulnerable if the right instrumentation was in place. Somebody back there said they have an IDS for Bluetooth. I'd love to see it. But again, be curious to see what it looks like in that. And I have not seen one yet. Yes?
So just real quick, just from your understanding, pinging a Bluetooth device violates no laws. Law enforcement can even do it without a warrant.
I am 100% not a lawyer.
I understand, so I should ask that question.
From the way that I've read the IEEE standard and the laws as they stand, you're not recording data, you're not intercepting data, and you're not doing anything encrypted or unencrypted.
And if I use something analogous to Warhammer's wonderful Find the Wi-Fi, again, I'm just collecting signal strength. It's an RF receiver. I'm just collecting signal strength. I'm not decoding data. So for that reason.
So Google got in trouble for doing location with wireless and collection.
They actually collect.
Correct. In that particular instance, again, I would talk to your local lawyers because every state has their own laws.
So
if you're passive, it's hard to do anything wrong.
Understood.
It's not. I'm not saying it's legal.
But it's
hard.
A couple $100 to get out of jail.
Exactly. If you're doing this professionally, again, we always have a very, very, very detailed rules of engagement with everything we're doing, and we get permission down to literally, I might pick up somebody's personal device if I'm doing something. We're not going to use it, but we might pick it up, and we have to.
Collaborated with the agency, we'd insist on a letter saying this.
Absolutely.
You bet.
Yeah, that get out of jail free card's important, especially when jail exists. Black helicopters do exist. Now, picking up passive signals is really hard to do by anything. So, as long as you're not transmitting and you're not injecting and you're not trying to decrypt, usually you're okay. It depends on the jurisdiction. Did I skirt that question well enough?
I got qualifiers in there. You bet.
Any other questions that don't involve a lawyer? I might have to call on them. Cool. Thank you.
Hey Rick, I got a quick question.
Sure.
So I can use, at home, I can use Blue Sonar, don't like Wi-Fi or
Yes, absolutely. The funniest use case I heard was Rick, as he was developing it, actually put a target on his mother-in-law's Fitbit. She lives within like a half a mile or so, and he was able to pick it up when it was close. I mean, yes, iPhone, device, whatever, it will pick up that Fitbit.
You have a habit of
I will tell you, if you lose an iPhone a lot, hit a lot.